We have our codes enforcement officer sitting at the side table tonight. We have Tom Wooden, our town manager, J.D. Warren, Russ Hoffman, myself, Denise Griffin, Bill Hamlin, and Wendy Wolf. And in the audience, our financial director, Julia Latter. Okay, so we're going to just, I think, quickly move to approving the consent agenda, since that will only take a couple of minutes, I think. And that is to altogether approve the minutes of the July 28th meeting with the recommended edits, changes that were circulated this afternoon. And also the public hearing on the Walk and Grill for a new victualler license, unless anybody in the audience has a concern about that. Do I see anybody with a concern? No. So all in favor of the consent agenda?
So moved.
So,
Second.
second.
Okay, all in favor? Yes. Motion approved. Okay, so now we'll move back and move to the variance hearing, which is a variance hearing at the request of the Rotary Club of Booth Bay Harbor. So before we get into this any further, because my husband is a very long time member of the club, I'd like to recuse myself since I know about some of the issues with regards to this. And I was just going to do it to make sure that everybody understood that I felt very strongly about conflict of interest, and while I think I could appropriately make a decision in this case, I just feel that it's the right thing to do to sit out on this discussion.
Great, thank you.
Okay. You turn it over to me.
It's my, yeah, I mean, it's my understanding that you all have to agree to this.
We
Oh, you do?
Yes, I
Oh,
certainly
you
do.
do?
She doesn't get to decide, actually.
Yes.
She gets to request and then we
Yeah.
decide.
Yep.
As much
You're
as
all
I
good
would like
with
you to
that?
force you to participate, I think I agree with.
Okay, great. So actually, I'm going to remove myself and sit in the audience just to move a point here or make a point, and I'll let the vice chairman take over.
A little bit of ground rules I'd like to see. If somebody from the audience, when we get to that point, wants to talk, we'll limit it to 2 minutes if we could. I want everybody to talk, of course, on this issue. So right now, I'd like to ask if any, well, we already have a conflict of interest already, so that's taken care of. Read the variance. This is what the variance read. The Rotary Club of Booth Bay Harbor request by James C. Sturmont, map 30, lot 1 on 66 Montgomery Road, request for a variance for chapter 170, article 4, section 1755, subsection C of the code of the Booth Bay Harbor. The applicants request a variance from the requirement to provide water and sewer to all lots if is available within 1,500 feet or less of any subdivision boundary. Mr. Stelmont, you want to explain your...
Yes. Just to make it a little easier, here's a plot plan. This property is up on Montgomery Road. Try not to kill myself on the microphone.
Thank you.
Rotary has owned the property for many years. As we're showing, I'm showing 4 lots. If anybody would like a copy in the audience, I have a copy. That's my last copy. The bottom lot, which I'm calling Lot 1, was sold in 2013, early in that year. The second lot up is where we have had a scout hall, what we call the scout hall building, for years. We are in the process of adding onto that building for our new clubhouse. We sold the clubhouse that was on Oak Street in town 2 or 3 years ago. And it is our desire to sell off lots 3 and 4 above the clubhouse. Because it's 2 lots, it requires subdivision. And then what JD just read off comes into play, the requirement if you're within 1,500 feet. Unfortunately, we are within 1,500 feet. Sewer is down on Route 96 on the south side, and I measured that off roughly, and it's about 1,300 feet. Sewer would cost about $60 a foot. Plus, I've learned, right down near 96, there's a dip that would require a lift station. That would probably be another $20,000. We're not going to get that much money for the 2 lots. Water is available at the lower right-hand corner of the bottom lot, the one that we sold in 2013. Town water is available there. That lot owner has, I don't know whether the water is installed, but has paid the fee to connect to city water. It was very expensive. It was over $7,000. Because the water line from there down to Route 96 was paid for by one individual, the stipulations are that anybody that hooks into it needs to go back and share in those costs. Bottom line is, it would be cost prohibitive for us to sell those 2 lots if we have to invest in water and sewer. The Red Hawk Reach development, which is up above our property, none of those homes are on city water or town water or sewer. There is 1 house on water, and then that lot 1 eventually will be on water. All the rest are on wells and septic. So we're not asking to break a standard that exists in that area. The code is the whole issue, and that's my request. Any questions of me?
Yes. When did the Rotaries buy the parcel?
When did they buy the parcel?
When did you buy the parcel?
Oh, I don't know. Many, many years ago. I don't know the date.
Before 2009?
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. We've had that property 10, 15, 20 years.
And was it always the intent to sell off some lots and keep some
No,
lots?
it wasn't. It was just a piece of property.
Uh-huh.
It was initially owned by the Pine Tree Council of the Boy Scouts.
Right.
And,
I remember.
and they turned it over to us, and we have provided scout use of that building that's there, and they will have use of our new building when that's completed. So it is our intent to continue to support the Boy Scouts at that property. But it was not the original intent to subdivide that. It's just something that came along as time went on, and we felt there was no need to keep the extra property.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Sure.
Go ahead.
And this really is maybe for Jeff also. Since Lot 2 is going to be for a new clubhouse, how does the expansion of facilities on Lot 2 relate to the requirement for water and sewer and expansion of facilities on Lot 2? Is there any implication for that?
No connection. Just as soon as they created a 3rd lot, so they currently have 2 lots. Lot 1 and 2 exist. Lot 3 and 4 have not been created yet. Once they create Lot 3, that triggers subdivision. And once the subdivision is created within 1,500 feet, you have to hook into public utilities.
And then for Lot 3 and 4, is there sufficient, I guess, analysis of those lots by water management and sewer management that a septic is both feasible and safe in those 2 lots?
They have both been tested and approved for septic.
They have.
Any questions, Bill?
Jeff, could you refresh my memory and our collective memories? So you take the parcel and divide it in two, and that's not a subdivision.
Right.
And then at some point later, you split off a third lot, and that makes it a subdivision under our bylaws,
Yeah.
right? Is there a time?
5 years.
5 years. So when, okay, so 2013. So if you waited until 2018, this wouldn't be an issue, is that correct?
Correct. I believe that's correct, 5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is correct.
You in a rush?
Yes, I'd ask the same thing, is
Well,
there time
Are you-
pressure?
To be brutally honest, empty lots aren't exactly flying off the market these days. There are lots for sale up on Montgomery Road
Yeah,
that have been for
sale
sale
for a long
Yeah,
time.
for 5 years.
So the Red Hawk Reach lots have been there for a long time, the ones that.
Well, as long as I've been in town, 6
Yeah.
years.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, are we in a hurry? We'd like to be, but I don't think anything's gonna happen quickly. Bare lots are the last to come back in a real estate market.
Yeah.
And so we don't expect anything to happen quickly. And yes, that would be an alternative, is just to wait 5 years and peel off a lot, and wait another 5 years and peel off another.
So what is the imperative to sell now? I mean, what has motivated the desire to go ahead and divide these into lots 3 and 4?
Because we're developing Lot 2, before it was, when I say develop, it had one small building on it that we called the Scout Hall. It's now going to have a complete Rotary clubhouse on that facility. And we decided, at the time, to build that building, that if we could, we would subdivide. We did sell off the lower lot, and the intent was then to sell off the lots 3 and 4, just to raise money.
So you're thinking this would be revenue generation to go into the new clubhouse?
No, the new clubhouse is already paid for. That's covered. This would be revenue to go into the Rotary Club. I cannot say exactly for what it would be used for, but as you know, Rotary is a service organization, and we do a lot of good charitable things. This money, at this point, is not designated for any specific item, because even if you were to say, approved, go ahead, I think we're looking at years before we would see anything.
So I've sung at many Rotaries, but I am not familiar with the ins and outs of some of the bylaws and stuff. I'm just curious how typical it is for Rotaries to, say, have assets like property to sell, and
Well,
I'm trying to apply even standard. If, say, you were a developer coming to say, I'd like to waive this and sell these 2 lots
in
versus
the
Rotary.
United States, I believe there is one other Rotary Club that has a clubhouse. It is not typical of a Rotary Club to have a clubhouse. This came about here in the Booth Bay area just because of they used to meet at Rover's Hardware in the back of the store.
Doesn't everybody?
In the summertime, the restaurants don't want to give up space when you have tourists spending big bucks. And in the winter, most of them are closed. So we had this was back many years ago, we had a problem as far as a place to meet, and that's when they acquired a building, I believe it was in 1949, but I'm not positive. But it's very unusual for a Rotary Club to own property.
Thank you, I appreciate that information.
When you did the research on putting sewer in, how much did you figure if you did put the sewer in, you would lose money? That's what you're telling us.
Well, the sewer line alone, I estimate it to be close to, hold on a second.
90,000 you told us, yeah.
90,000, and that didn't include a lift station. So we would not receive $90,000 for those 2 lots. I think we'd be lucky to get 70, 75.
Okay.
So even without the lift station, the equation doesn't work if we need to provide sewer alone, and water and sewer makes it even worse. So it's not a feasible project unless we receive the variance.
Any other questions?
So, Phil, your comment about 2009 was significant because that's the date that the
Yeah.
1,500-foot requirement was
Yes.
put into effect, I guess. And Jeff, let me have the 5-year item again.
If 3 or more lots are created within one 5-year period, that triggers subdivision. So if
So the
if
first
you
lot
waited
was-
another 3 years
So the first lot was broken off in
in
13.
2013, so by 2018, you could break off another lot and it would trigger subdivision. And then you'd have to wait another 5 years and obviously
Okay,
trigger
all right, thanks.
to get lot
Is that independent of ownership?
one. Yes, depending on who you would give lot 3 or 4 to. For instance, lot,
So here's
if
the
you could,
construct.
you could
If
give
they
it to
sell-
a butter,
if
and
they
you,
sell-
and that doesn't trigger subdivision. You could give it to a relative of certain lineage, and that wouldn't trigger subdivision. There are ways to be exempt from subdivision rules. This
If-
just doesn't seem to classify it.
If you sell lots 3 and 4 together to somebody else, and then.
Still is subdivision, still, it's just one lot.
No, I understand. Suppose you wait,
They would have to
To
wait
5
5
years.
years to split that lot.
they would have to wait 5 years as well. Okay.
Any other comments?
Why wouldn't you just hold on to those other 2 lots?
What you decide, you probably will. I mean, that's our other option, is to peel one off in 5 years, peel another one off 5 years after that.
Yeah. I will say, going into this, I'm torn, because I don't think you're trying to sneak a subdivision by us, by the town. That's pretty clear. And my recollection and my understanding is that the intent of this law was really for, this would be a minor subdivision, and the law was intended to apply to minor subdivisions, but I don't think it was intended to apply to splitting off a lot, splitting off a lot, splitting off a lot. But nonetheless, I think the law is the law. I was also intrigued, the Board of Appeals, we've all been focusing on the variance part of it. There's also another power that's given to the Board of Appeals, the next paragraph, which is the right to interpret provisions of the land use code in specific instances where either the Board of Selectmen, Planning Board, Code Enforcement Officer, or private party may be adversely affected by these provisions. In other words, if there's a gray area in the law, the way I read it, the Board of Appeals has the authority to interpret what was meant by this bylaw. And there may be some traction there, but now having discussed it, I don't think there is. There isn't any really traction there. I was wondering about, did you really meet the definition of a subdivision? And I think you do. I don't see a way around that, other than the time factor.
Any more comments from the board? Comments from the public?
I have a question. Mike Tomko, 59 Roseanne. Jim, do you know the quality of the soil? In our code, it says that there are criteria for allowing septic systems, but it says not to be allowed if the soil is substandard and it hasn't been done by a licensed soil site evaluator. So
Those 2 lots have been tested by a licensed soil evaluator, I'm not sure if that's the right term, and he has marked off, in fact, I think if this were blown up where you could read it a little better, they're marked on here as far as where his test sites were. So it has been tested for septic.
you've done the HHE 200 or whatever
Right.
that is, so it could support it.
Well, and this lot where we're adding, that lot has been on septic in a well for years.
I was just building on what Bill was talking about in terms of interpretation and where our code says that it's applicable for subdivisions that are not using public sewer, and it lists basically just, can the site support it? If it can't support it, then it's definitely not allowed. That's all. Thank you.
Any other comments?
Does, question to the planning board. Could you waive sewer requirements for a small subdivision?
I'd like Jeff's reading on this, but,
No.
yeah,
Okay.
it
We
says,
right here again.
I understand.
Yep.
yeah.
Is an authority within the envelope of
Yeah.
the planning board?
It says within, you know, right in our code that it's the 1,500 feet requirement if they're within that,
Yeah,
to be attached.
okay.
Okay. Any other comments?
Well, I think, like Bill, I mean, maybe we all feel torn. Rotary is an important organization that does good things for the town and the community, and we want to be as supportive as we possibly can. At the same time, we have rules, so I guess I'm torn as anybody is on this issue.
Yeah, and I guess why would you set precedents? I mean, it happens once, it's gonna end up happening again.
Good point.
Smaller things.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
can wait.
Well,
It's too
here's-
bad, but yeah.
Here's one way to quantify that, and our financial officer can help. So if you wait, there is a cost to waiting. So what is the net present value of whatever you would get from that lot in 5 years versus now? Because clearly it's not economic if you have to put in the sewer. I agree with
Yeah,
your
right,
assessment of that.
that isn't gonna
I
happen.
don't see any.
Right.
I agree with that.
That's as
That's not
straightforward a
gonna
case as I've ever seen in terms of the economic. But where I start to have additional thoughts is, okay, suppose I waited 5 years. So if you could sell a lot, and you're right, the market for lots is not great to begin with, so that's an added factor that we're not gonna be able to quantify. But suppose you could sell each lot for $35,000. So what's the loss of $35,000 now versus $35,000 in 5 years?
I don't think you can really calculate that, because
Yeah, you
in
can.
5 years, it may be worth more
Well,
than
I
35.
understand that argument, but I'm taking that out of the picture,
Good.
and there are formulas, you know, if,
Well,
you know, one thing is you could take $35,000 and put it in the bank for 5 years and,
Right.
or invest it, and if you were really good, you know, you could get maybe a 5% return or something.
Boy, I want a bank there.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
know, I know, well, that's not interest, that's, as I said, that's investment. You know, so that's, it's still only, $1,750.
Yeah.
That's not a huge penalty.
Yeah, I would have to say, in my mind, the evidence of hardship is not satisfied, in the sense that the
Right.
only thing that is being proposed is moving these forward now as opposed to waiting so that the
Yeah,
statute can run out.
Yeah.
And since there's no financial imperative that this sale must
Right.
take place, say, to
Yeah.
build the building or meet other operations, there really is not per se a financial hardship.
I think that's a valid
That's,
argument.
that's fair.
If that option were not available to you, I would have a different opinion. I would certainly say there's real financial hardship. But given that waiting 5 years is an option and you can return, and I understand all other things being the same, and they're not gonna be the same. You may make more money, you may make less money.
yeah.
But on a straight financial issue, it's a couple $1,000.
What is the tax status of those lots?
I can't answer that. I
Does
don't
the
know.
Rotary pay taxes on them?
They haven't been created yet.
Well, but right now,
But-
on
but
the
on the
lot,
whole-
On the whole lot.
yes,
Yeah.
we do pay,
They do.
yes, we do
They
pay
do.
taxes.
Any other questions from the public or the board? Can we proceed?
Sure.
What I have to do now, I have to go down through the findings, and I have to read them all, and you say in favor or against. Everybody following me? Okay, the board finds that the applicant has demonstrated that the land in question cannot yield a reasonable return without the request of variance by providing the following information. Can you supply the following information to us? Are you in favor or against that? Yes, no?
Basically looking for some sort of justification if he has provided the information.
Has he
If they
provided-
failed to provide that information, that's what we
Yeah.
put in there.
Okay,
So the information provided is that the
Cost of the sewer is 90K.
yeah, 90K, I get it, right here, yeah.
90K
Yeah.
and the cost of water.
I didn't go
Also-
into that in detail, but that would be probably 20 to 30,000.
And it's a question about yielding a reasonable return, so the anticipated value of selling the land or
Yeah.
would be, how much do we think?
Well, I think, right now, I think net we'd be lucky to get 35,000 per lot.
Yeah, I actually took a swing through land for sale in Booth Bay and Booth Bay Harbor, and I think that's what we
I mean,
Yeah,
I think we'd probably list it for somewhere in the low
Right.
40s, and
Yeah.
I did the same thing, I looked around and, you know, it'd be around 35 or maybe a little less.
although if we wait 30 years, it'll be oceanfront property.
Yeah, there you go. We're doing it
Exactly.
fake.
Exactly. It's nice high ground.
Sold my house.
So it's about $110,000 to $120,000 cost versus about $70,000
Net,
return.
yeah.
I would reluctantly vote against this because you have the option of waiting 5 years.
Yes, I agree.
I agree. Everybody?
Well, how does this work? Do we,
Yeah,
We-
Jeff, give
we-
us a little guidance.
we
Sure,
kind of-
absolutely. Basically, what I'm looking for, and I think you've summarized it, that they may have demonstrated, they either have demonstrated satisfactorily that this does not, we can't yield a reasonable return, and I need something summarized from you guys. And either that's, that the return on the lots will equal the investment, you get to those lots, or something like that. And you're gonna take a vote, and you're either gonna say that you agree with that statement, or you disagree with that statement. Or if they haven't provided enough information to justify that, that's what we'll put down.
So I need further clarification. It would appear as if you can satisfy some of these conditions.
Exactly.
In the
Right.
sense that, yes, the land in question under these parameters will not yield a reasonable return if he has to build a sewer. So, yes, actually, that argument he made fairly, but there are other extenuating circumstances in terms of timing that I think we're articulating
Mhm.
would rule against the variance. So is this sort of, yes, we made decision one, we didn't quite make decision two, and then there's an overall sort of decision?
Well, exactly, you're gonna
Okay.
go through and vote on each of
Yeah,
the
but I
four
would-
hardships and then
I would
summarize.
qualify it within this question. At this point in time, the cost of the sewer outweighs the cost of the question. However, if the applicant waits 5 years, the financial hardship appears to disappear.
Right.
Okay, well, all ready to go on to the next question?
well,
Or no? Okay, go ahead.
so,
So under that scenario, I would say that's a vote against.
Against, that's
Yes.
right.
okay. That's a scenario, that's like, we got two cases, I guess. Right now, there's an overriding expense, and if we wait 5 years, the expense goes away, I guess is, so. Okay, against.
Okay. Under that is B, the need for a variance to do when unique circumstances of the property and not to be generally conditioned in the neighborhood. The board finds that the applicant has demonstrated the property's circumstances are unique and not similar to the general conditions of the neighborhood by providing the following information. and that had to do with non-residential lots have sewer and water only, do, 2 lots have municipal sewer. Is that correct on that?
Two lots have water, none
Water,
have
yeah.
sewer.
Are you for that or against it?
Well, I don't think the property circumstances are unique.
Same?
No.
No, I don't think. Against everybody?
Yeah.
So they have not demonstrated that.
Right, have not demonstrated, sorry. Okay, C, that the grant of the variance will not alter the essential characteristics of the locality. The board finds that the applicant has demonstrated the variance will not alter the essential characteristics of the neighborhood by providing the following information.
I would vote in favor of that. It is the character of that neighborhood that there are individual lots with sewers and, septic systems and wells. And if you were to go ahead and do that, it would be just the same. So it wouldn't alter the character.
Wouldn't alter it, yeah, okay. So that one is in favor?
I would.
Okay. How about everybody else?
I can go along with that.
The variance will not alter the essential character of the neighborhood. The variance. Yeah, right, okay.
Did you? D, under that is that the hardship is not, and we did discuss this, the hardship is not the result of action taken by the applicant or prior owner. The board finds that the hardship is not the result of action taken by the applicant by providing the following information.
They bought the lot before this
Right. For this,
2009.
code
right.
was enforced, so
that's right,
So that's,
not their fault.
not their fault. What's the board, what's the decision on that?
so that's
In
in
favor.
favor.
Any conditions of approval? Any conditions at all?
Well, you gotta-
Well, we gotta do the
Yeah,
decision.
Oh, gee,
Are you
wait a
approving
minute.
Yeah.
Did I
We're
skip?
Waiting for the
You
curtain to come down.
skip
I did, sorry. All right. I need to go back to the other.
the top of the back page. is
Sorry.
Where we are. Okay,
Yeah,
based on the above.
Yep.
Isn't that what we have to do?
yeah, I'm sorry.
Nope, that's okay.
Okay, the decision, based on the above findings of the facts, concludes that the plans and supporting the information submitted, testimony and evidence submitted at the Board of Appeals meeting on your application, on motion made by,
I'll so move.
so move,
Second.
second. The Board of Hoopa Harbor Appeals approve or denied? Your variance
Your
request,
motion was for.
Was to deny the variance.
deny, yeah, sorry. Any,
Call a vote.
Yeah.
yeah, I'm sorry.
There are no conditions. of
There's no
approval.
condition to call for a vote. Second?
Yeah, we did.
We seconded
I
it.
seconded it.
Okay.
So, all in favor?
All in favor?
Of the motion.
All the
Of the
motion. Yeah,
Right.
sorry.
Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you for
Thank
your
you, Jim.
thoughtful presentation.
I don't have to read it now?
You're done, you're available in 5 years.
Or
Less than enough.
Thank you.
Decision's done.
I don't know if they need us to sign it.
I think that would really.
Oh,
I
okay.
think we do.
You're all set with that?
I'm sorry, I read it.
Well, yeah, you did great.
I believe the appeal. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Okay,
We're all set here.
we're all set, so let's move on with our agenda. We're going to move back to item number 4, town manager announcements.
Alrighty, thank you. Just a couple of things. You may or may not know that the town office is now accepting credit cards again. We stopped that years ago when we were incurring fees. Now there's a small processing fee for each transaction. The minimum is $1 or the transaction fee is 2.5% of whatever the total is. So just in time for tax season, we're taking credit cards again.
Okay, that's good. I think that'll be really helpful for people who either work out of town or can't get here or have second homes here and want to pay their taxes. So I think that'll be seen to be very convenient by taxpayers. Thank you,
I
Tom.
think you're right. I think you're right. Yep. Thank you. Speaking of taxes, the tax rate was set by Rob Duplessis the end of last week, and I'm pleased to announce that it has gone down slightly. Last year's tax rate was 10.95%. This year's tax rate is 10.9%. And tax bills should be getting mailed out on this Thursday.
Great work. So
That's wonderful.
That's really a wonderful accomplishment for you and for the department heads and for the entire town. We've had tremendous pressures on our tax base, as you well know, and I think it's really a testament that we have run a reasonably tight ship for that to have happened, and I'm very proud of that.
So am I. Thank you.
Thank you.
I really think, since, I've been here almost 4 years, almost, and I tell you, I think it's been great to keep the taxes and the budget under control and not spend the way we should. And I think everybody's done a good job, the budget committee, the board of selectmen. We've tried to keep the tax dollars down. And I think we've done a heck of a job trying to maintain equilibrium on, and this is a hard economy, let's face it, it's hard out there.
Yeah,
So,
it is.
trying, and this winter, think of this winter, when we had this winter, and we stayed within that budget of the public works and everything. So I thought we've done a terrific job. I'm not patting myself on the back, I'm patting everybody's on the back, because I think we've done,
This is a big deal.
I think it
Deserves
is.
recognition.
It is.
Oh, it will.
Good.
Thank you. We hope so.
And it deserves, I think, a thank you to the volunteers who serve on the town's budget committee.
Yes.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So,
Your hard work.
The only other thing that I have to mention under announcements is that we are currently rebuilding the website. I'm sure you've noticed that the old one has been taken down. There's a new one being set up right now. So far, it seems so much more user-friendly. It literally is a cut and paste type website, so we're getting documents, articles, pictures, town seal, things like that up in a much quicker period of time than we have before. So I anticipate having that up and running fairly soon.
Fairly soon being
Well, I'm not a website designer, but, my goal,
weeks.
my goal is in the next couple of weeks, yeah. Right now, we might be doing the easy part, so I don't know, I'll keep you posted.
I don't know if it's feasible, but if there is an option to get even a rudimentary website up and then fill in behind it
Yeah.
with the details, I would advocate that we take
Yeah,
that route.
I have talked to them about that too, even if it's just a frame,
Yeah.
just a shell, yeah, okay. So that's all I have for announcements right now, Denise.
I just have a couple, one thing, Denise. is
Sure.
The building on the middle road, the new building is coming along great. I kind of looked around it today, and it's coming right along.
It is, yeah, I was out there the other day, and they are expecting that it will be done either the last week of August, or if it drags out for any reason, maybe the second week of September. So we're not far away from completion with that one too. So.
good. Okay. Julia, financials.
Okay, I'm not sure if any of you received my email this afternoon.
We did.
Okay. I was waiting till the 23rd hour to find out whether the computer company was going to give me a fix. But, so I can provide everything for you except for, obviously, the graph at this time. And I have a call into the auditor. They're out on those audits right now to pinpoint a time as to when they're going to come and present the audit report for fiscal year end June 30th. So hopefully I hear back from them within the next couple of days. So I cannot provide for you the total expenses year-to-date, because a journal entry from last accounts payable did not post to it, so it makes a big difference in expenditures. And the total revenue today is $176,120.40. And the total accounts payable is $395,537.01. Does anyone have any questions on the revenue or accounts payable?
Tom mentioned the tax bills will be out
Hopefully this Thursday.
this week. That's earlier than prior years, right?
Much, yeah, we've always had a goal of having them mailed out a month before they were
Okay.
due.
The due dates have not changed.
Due date is September 15th or
12th, with
12th,
interest
yeah.
beginning on.
Okay, so, but the fact that the bills are out there, hopefully we'll see people who want
We
to
will, and
pay early and
if
often.
you notice the difference between the last revenue statement and this revenue statement, the amount you can see committed is next to the anticipated tax revenue. That includes the personal property and real estate tax commitment figure that was done last week by Bob Duplessis. So that was a total commitment.
Okay.
And the bank balance is $1,547,954.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, moving on to old business. We had talked about preparing and sending a resolution for Booth Bay, the town of Booth Bay's 250th historic celebration. And I think one was prepared by Mr. Hamblin. Did everybody get a chance to look at it?
Yes, we did. We did.
Whereas I did.
Whereas,
Okay.
I want to know where you learned all those skills, Bill.
Yeah.
Whereas.
Very good.
Yeah.
Well, good job. Are we all in favor of the proclamation as was distributed last week?
Yes,
That's very nicely done.
very nice.
Very good? Okay.
Very good.
I don't think we really need to vote on this,
We
but.
don't need
Yeah, you do.
Yeah, we do?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah, we
okay,
do.
all
You
in
need to vote.
favor?
All in favor?
I move we accept the
Move.
proclamation.
Nicely
Second.
done,
All right, all in favor?
Yes.
Great.
Yahoo.
Bill, can you
Okay.
send me
We'll send
tomorrow
that.
one that doesn't say draft on it?
I can give it to you
Oh,
tonight.
you have one?
Yeah,
Okay, good,
right
okay,
here.
thanks. We'll sign that one, then, all right, good.
Okay, great. New business. So the first order of new business is that the police chief has asked us to appoint Jay Crooker as a reserve officer. Anybody have any questions of Tom for that? As far as I'm concerned, the more reserve officers, the better.
Yeah, we usually have 4 to 6 reserve officers. We have 2 right at the moment, but actually neither one of them works many hours. We have Jared Mitkus, who's a full-time Lincoln County officer, and we have Gabrielle Matthew, who is now a full-time officer in Topsom. So we really don't have anyone that's filling in for that. So this person would be a great addition, I think. And Bob recommends him very, very strongly. I met with him last week. Seems like a good guy, so I would support Bob's recommendation to bring him on as a reserve officer.
Someone like to make a motion?
Yes, so moved.
Second.
All in favor? Okay, motion carries.
Thank you.
All right. Rebuilding together. Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Fran McBrady, and I'm a resident of Booth Bay. I'm on the board of directors of Rebuilding Together, and my function there is their operations department. Basically, I put together all of the projects that Rebuilding Together does, and most of our projects are done on the peninsula with Edgecombe, Booth Bay Harbor, and Southport. And I just made the same request to Booth Bay, and I'll be going to the other towns also. The types of projects that we have been seeing coming along, some of them are getting a little bit more complex and are starting to require building permits. And what I would like you folks to consider is waiving building permit fees for Rebuilding Together projects. And the way Booth Bay set it up, just as a bit of information, if I have a project that requires a building permit in Booth Bay, I discuss it with the code officer. If the project has an immediate need, we'll pay the fee right away, and then with the town manager, take it to the selectmen to have it waived and be reimbursed. If it's something that doesn't have an immediate need within, say, a 2-week period to coincide with selectmen's meetings, then I would simply take it to the selectmen's meeting at that point in time with the code officer's concurrence and at least what the fee schedule is. One of the reasons for doing that is last year we spent a little over $15,000 between the two towns on projects, materials, fees and stuff like that. And a $50 building permit would give me 2 more hours of the contract handyman that I use for work on other than May projects. And that can be a meaningful thing at this point in time. I anticipate that we'll probably spend around $20,000 this year. I just contracted, I think about $6,000 to have a roof done for a woman on Union Street. And that's probably going on right now. So anyway, that's what my request is, and would like to answer any questions you might have.
So I understand that you would come to us on a case-by-case basis.
On a case-by-case
So
basis.
this is not a blanket.
No, not a blanket
this is
review.
individual.
And typically, what I would probably do is I'd go to Jeff and say, Jeff, I got a project, it's urgent, I need to get somebody working fairly quickly. I would probably pay the building fee myself, and then come to you for a request to have that remitted back to me, or to Rebuilding Together. Or if it's something that falls within more than 3 weeks out, I would simply come to you with Jeff's knowledge of what the permit is, and say, I'm looking at a permit for a job, here's what the fee's gonna be, would you folks remit it?
Can I ask a clarifying question? Since I've not been on the planning board and I'm not a builder, tell me, or Tom, maybe you can tell me, the reason to actually obtain a building permit, is it to demonstrate that you are adhering, say, to code and therefore have the permit to build? I'm just really trying to understand.
Absolutely. The need is to adhere to code. There are a lot of projects we do that don't need a building permit.
Right.
But there are projects that we can see in the foreseeable future that are going to need that. So, and it might be, if I do 25 projects in a year, I might need 1 building permit throughout the whole peninsula, or I might need 10, I don't know. It depends on what people's needs are. And, we're seeing clients with more and more needs.
I'm sure you are. And
Yeah.
I should say thank you for all the work that you've done for the community. I'm just curious to make sure that both Rebuilding Together is protected and then the residents are protected, that anything that the group undertakes is conducted to conform to code. And so how would that process work? That you would talk to Jeff? Would Jeff
I mean, in this
sort of
case,
verify then that something is
I mean, we're talking about waiving the fee here, actually.
Right.
Not the rest of the process.
Most of the
So
time,
it's
we
just
know,
a
we know
fee,
if a
like,
code,
just a
if
fee
a building permit was required.
Okay.
And I think what I heard Fran say was that you are going to actually go through the normal application process, so the town knows about it. So
Oh,
he's
yeah,
going
oh,
to
yeah.
get the fee reimbursed back
Yeah.
to Rebuilding Together. So the town will know, and the CEO will be able to check up to make sure that the renovations were done appropriately.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. I appreciate that clarification.
So one more thing, Fran. You did say that you can see a number of projects coming.
Yep.
How many, do you think?
Within the
That would
peninsula
require
alone, right now, I have a couple of projects right now that if we were able to do everything we want to, we would probably spend $10,000 in each house. We're not going to be able to do that, but several of the projects are going to be insulation, some wiring issues going on in some houses, some heavy plumbing issues. Roofs, if I don't know if a permit is required in the harbor. If it is, I use Fowler Roofing in Chelsea to do all my roofing. And if a permit's required anywhere, they pull the permit. And, I do have one project going on in Booth Bay right now where I had to pull a permit to do the work, and I was fortunate enough to strike a deal with a local contractor that he's gonna do the work on a weekend, and I'm gonna pay the materials. And it's about a $2,500 project. So that worked out pretty good. At least I don't have to find a contractor to do things. You know, we can get a lot done in May, and a lot of the local contractors give us a lot of time and skill, and a lot of their employees do. During the rest of the year, we look for a local handyman that I have to do small jobs, and then we look for contractors to do big jobs. And some of these jobs are gonna start requiring permits. Stuff that we did maybe 5, 6 years ago was small stuff, and I think about, okay, we have a lot of clients, and we've fixed a lot of small things in houses. And I'm not gonna go into what those are because we wanna protect our clients. But now we're seeing clients with greater needs, and it stands to reason in today's economy.
I might make the following observation and suggestion. First of all, I think Rebuilding Together does a terrific job and fills a need that's not otherwise met in our community, and I really support you for that, and I've volunteered for them each year, and so I think you're doing really good stuff. I'm okay with this, since you will be coming before the board for each case, but I would like you to consider it an interim approach, because really, we're sidestepping the budget review process that we just said that we like so much and had, and I would like to suggest to you that next year or the year beyond that, you put together a proposal, come before the budget committee and say, we think we're gonna need $1,000 for permits this year. Can we have that in the town budget? Because that's really the right way to do it. This sort of sidesteps that process.
And I don't think the fees would go that high either. If
Whatever,
anything, a couple $100 at the most.
Whatever the number is, but that would be a better way to do it than this case-by-case waiving of the
I
permit
agree.
fees.
And we can do that.
Yeah,
Well, that also means probably we should track the expenditure.
yeah. Yeah, as I said, I don't have any problem with this because it's A, small amounts of money, and B, it's a case-by-case basis. But in the longer term, I'd like you to consider doing that process rather than this process.
And we can do that. We can extrapolate some
Yeah.
kind of a formula based on, you know, past history and say, okay, if it runs the same way, here's what we're gonna need.
Yeah. And I think there is a legitimate public interest here. I think it helps the town to have our houses looking nice rather than, in need of repair. And so, I would generally support that.
And I think we're keeping a lot of residents in their homes.
You bet.
I would say that 75% of our clients right now are elderly
Yeah.
widows.
Yeah.
And, some of the work we do is actually extending the time that they can stay in their homes.
I'm just, again, I think Rebuilding Together is a wonderful organization. I'm just suggesting a slightly different strategy for getting what you need to get.
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay.
I have a question.
Sure.
When this airs on Channel 7 and Jeff's phone starts ringing, as far as nonprofits wanting to have fees waived, what direction do you want me to give him as far as how we administer this for the other nonprofits?
We had that discussion at Booth Bay too, and one of the issues was there is a difference between a nonprofit 501c3 doing work and an organization that is drawing its funds strictly from volunteer donations and a few minor grants. And I don't think you're going to see an awful lot of other organizations that are in that same position. The Woodchucks is just associated with what is the organization that Kid Cheryl belongs to? Booth Bay Community Resources. They might look at something like that for the work they do all over the peninsula. But I don't think you'll see an awful lot of that differentiate between and we're a 501c3 also, but differentiate between a 501c3 that gets its funding from many, many sources. We depend on a lot of $25 and $50 and $100 donations from the community itself to fund everything we do. And I've applied for about $40,000 worth of grants this year already, and one of them we just had rejected by the federal government for $28,000. So I've got a couple of others floating around with local hardware stores, Lowe's, and a few others to hopefully get something to do some big projects.
I mean, what I've heard tonight, and don't get me wrong, I'm for this completely, but what I'm hearing tonight wasn't about your corporate setup and your financial setup, it was about rebuilding together and being a nonprofit. That's how it's gonna be taken by people when they see this, that, oh, we're a nonprofit. And so, maybe we just deal with it case by case when it comes up, but I was just looking to see if there'd been any thought to that.
Yeah, I think I'm for handling it as a case-by-case
Okay.
basis. The only other organization that I could think would be somewhat parallel to doing this exact kind of work would be Habitat for
Yeah.
Humanity.
Yeah.
That's the most obvious one. And in fact, they're actually building complete homes.
Mhm.
And I don't know when the last time was Habitat built a house in our particular town. So,
They haven't, what Habitat does do, they haven't done it on the peninsula, I think Wiscasset is what, as far as I've seen. They're taking homes and doing an awful lot of insulation and things like that on major home repairs. And in fact, I've asked them to get involved in a couple of projects that I've looked at in Wiscasset, and they rejected the project because they said it was too small for them to do.
Yeah, I'd be in favor of a case-by-case basis.
Me too.
It's fine.
Case by case.
Yeah, and I'm very comfortable with a case-by-case basis. I'm retired, I have a lot of time.
perfect.
Good.
Great.
Good.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
All right, so now we're moving on, and it's time for public forum. Does anybody have any issues or any questions? Concerns, comments?
I have one simple question.
Sure.
If someone wants to pay a bill with a credit card, the fee, is that paid by the town or is it added on for the person?
It's added on for the person.
The person pays it, okay, just wanted to clarify, and make sure,
Yep.
thank you.
Good question. Anybody else? No? Okay, great. I don't see the need for an executive session tonight unless somebody sees one. No? Okay, then we'll move on to warrants. Do I have a motion to approve the warrants?
I move we approve the warrants upon careful review.
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor? Motion carries. And I have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, this is not debatable. All in favor? All right. Thank you, everybody.